turning a photographic failure into a photographic success. Welcome back to another episode here at BradKPhoto.com. I'm Bradley. Find me on Twitter at BradKPhoto. So what happens when you have a photography failure? Right? The dreaded word, failure. Well, what defines failure? For me, it's when a location or something doesn't work out the way I expected it to. That to me would be a failure. Now, there's a lot of things outside of my control on these kind of location shoots, especially at a sunrise or a sunset. Yesterday, when I went out to shoot a tutorial to show you guys how to photograph a sunrise, guess what? The sunrise was awful, right? There was no color. It was just lackluster. My location wasn't the best location it could have been, even though I thought going into it it was going to be a great location. Well, guess what? You can still turn that into a successful shoot. How do you do that? Well, you find the one image out of a series of images from that day that works. Because no matter what happens, there's always going to be one good image, right? You take a bunch of photos because you want at least one good image. Well, that's what I got. It wasn't a sunrise photo. It was a blue hour shot, pre-sunrise, pre-dawn light. The city lights were on, and you know what? It's still a great image. It wasn't what I was looking for, but I'll use it, and I'll show you guys that just as soon as I let you watch the tutorial I had somewhat put together from the location. Enjoy that. When we come back, we'll edit the photo. Okay, so there you have it. All the settings that you need and the shot info right there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start actually firing off some photos because the sun's actually coming up quite a bit. It's coming up really fast at this point. As you get closer and closer to a break in the horizon, the faster it gets. Now, I'm not getting much color yet. I'm hoping once it comes over the horizon, however, that we'll start to get a lot of that color bouncing off of the glass of the buildings and get a nice little glow and reflection coming from them. If it doesn't, we'll have to go out again and try and get this another day. So let's go ahead and just start firing off some shots. So right now, what we're looking at is a 1 second exposure at f5. And it's a little underexposed, so what I'm going to do is just stop it up to 1.3 seconds, and we're going to fire a shot up. Now, several things are going to affect your metering for each image. If you're on evaluative metering, and you're evaluating for the sky, the foreground, and lights, then your metering is going to give you a different reading. I like to do the evaluative metering when I'm doing sunrise and sunset, so that way I'm not overexposing my sky too much. I can always bring that back with the highlights in Lightroom. Now, if I'm shooting something like a sporting event where the lighting is constant, then I'll do spot metering and make sure that my subject that I want is automatically metered for. So let's go ahead and review that image real fast here, just to make sure that it's exactly where I want it to be, and it's looking really good. If nothing else, we'll have some really nice early morning blue hour photos to work with. So we'll just keep firing them off because you want to have enough content to edit. So as the light's changing, you want to make sure that you're adapting to each new element in the lighting. So we're going to give it just a couple of moments here. I'm going to fire off a few more, and then I'm going to go ahead and do some shots with the D7000 just so you can compare and contrast. It's really not a huge difference other than maybe the megapixel size. And I want to prove to you that I can get great images with both cameras. After which, we will also go back and we will edit these images on the computer. So hang tight. I'm going to fire off a bunch more photos. Don't go anywhere. I'll see you guys back at home where we'll be editing these images. Okay, so there you had the real fast tutorial. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to jump right into the one image that I said, turn that photography failure into a photography success. And this is it. So as you can see, this is a pretty decent image. A little overexposed, but that's okay. We shot raw. We'll bring it right back. We're going to just start with the exposure, bring it down a little bit, blast up our contrast, maybe fix the exposure up a little more now, and change our white balance. We're going to go colder with it because it looks a little too red from the tungsten lights. And I'm thinking right there looks pretty good for us. We're going to bring down the black level a little bit, and then we have to adjust one more time for the red of the tungsten. Right there looks pretty good. And I might want a little bit more cold temperature in it. Perfect. I'm not going to touch any of these because I don't need to on this. So let's go ahead and straighten out our image. And then because there's so much foreground here, what we want to do is we want to crop that out because it's a little bit distracting. You know, that's kind of the benefit of shooting in a park. We get a really high view, but we have to deal with all the trees. So we'll work around the trees. And I just want to make sure that my foreground is somewhat perfectly even. Boom, I love it. Sharpening, bring it up. And then right here, you can just see masking. Hit the Alt or Option button, and everything in white is affected by this mask. I just want it right on the buildings. Perfect. I don't really want that sky getting any extra noise into it. And then what I'm going to do is just really selective clarity, really. So I want to make sure that my exposure bar is hit up really high just so I can see what I'm doing while I'm painting just over the buildings themselves. Don't really want the sky or anything else. So by having that exposure bar up, you can actually see it without getting this really annoying red overlay, which if I did the mask overlay would just be red and kind of throws off your eyes with the other colors if you look at it for too long. So as you can see, I kind of got a little bit on the sky. Not a big deal. Hold down your Alt or Option key. Erases it right out. Just like that. You don't really need to be perfect with this, guys. I mean, it's not going to be so drastic that it's going to make a massive halo effect, but you want to be somewhat accurate with your selection. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to get rid of the exposure, and I'm just going to bring up my clarity. I think to 15 is the best spot. I'm going to bring up some shadows on it, and then I'm going to bring the exposure up just a little bit because I just want the buildings a little bit more pop, right? You want them to stand out a little bit more. And that's it. I like that. That looks good. And then lastly, I'm just going to do a quick clone out of some of this branch just to get it a little bit easier when you bring it into Photoshop. You can then only have to work with this little itty bitty bit of branching versus having to work with the entire branch, and it will just make the entire process run that much smoother. And there you have it. That's it. I'm loving how this entire image came out. It looks really good. I might bring up the blacks, bring down the black just a touch more. Perfect. And there it is, the final product. And I got all of this with a photography failure, right? So next time you're out shooting and the sunrise or the sunset isn't quite what you expected, make sure you find that one image in all of the shots that you took that you can edit and make a great photo out of. That way you turn your own photography failure into photography success. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Facebook. I'll see you guys next time.